Before a single punch is thrown, before the bell slices through the noise and makes it official, there's a moment that doesn't just set the tone, it defines everything that follows. It's the walkout. That chilling, electrifying transition where a fighter steps out of the safety of the locker room and into the raw, unforgiving spotlight of the arena. And when Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois made that walk into what fans were already calling the Cauldron, it didn't feel like a routine entrance. It felt like the calm before something explosive, something almost inevitable. The atmosphere wasn't just loud, it was suffocating. Thousands of voices crashed together into a wall of sound that shook the very structure of the venue, turning anticipation into pure adrenaline. Lights cut through the darkness, music pounded like a heartbeat, and every step toward the ring felt heavier, more meaningful, like each second was dragging the fighters closer to a moment that could change everything. This wasn't just another fight night. This felt different, bigger, more dangerous, almost unpredictable in a way that made even seasoned fans uneasy. Wardley walked with a focused intensity, his eyes locked forward, carrying the energy of a man who knew exactly what was at stake. On the other side, Dubois moved with a quiet, controlled presence, the kind that doesn't need noise to command attention. But beneath that calm exterior was something else. Pressure, expectation, and the weight of proving a point that had been questioned time and time again. Two fighters, two mindsets, both stepping into the same storm. And that's what made this walkout so powerful. It wasn't just about entering the ring, it was about crossing a line. Once they stepped through those ropes, there was no turning back, no safety net, no second chances. The crowd could feel it. The tension was almost unbearable, like the entire arena was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable collision. As the arena lights began to shift and the music started to rise, something changed instantly, something you could feel before you could even explain it. The entire atmosphere tightened, like the air itself had been pulled into one single direction. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Every eye locked onto the same point, the entrance path. And in that moment, nothing else in the world seemed to matter except who was about to step through that curtain. This is where the walkout becomes more than just a tradition, it becomes a psychological battlefield. The noise builds, the lights flicker, and anticipation turns into something almost unbearable. What was once thousands of individuals scattered across the arena suddenly becomes one unified force, all feeding off the same energy, the same tension, the same hunger to witness something unforgettable. It's no longer just a crowd. It's a living, breathing entity, reacting to every beat of the music, every shadow that moves near the entrance. And then it hits, the realization that this is the final moment before chaos. The last stretch of control before everything explodes into violence inside the ring. Every step the fighters take down that narrow path feels heavier, louder, more intense, as if the weight of expectation is physically pressing down on them. For the fans, it's electric. For the fighters, it's suffocating. Because once they appear, once they make that walk, there's no slowing it down. No escape. Just a straight line toward impact. And that's the true power of this moment, it doesn't just build anticipation, it traps everyone inside it. Fabio Wardley's entrance didn't scream for attention, it commanded it in a far more dangerous way. There was no wild emotion, no wasted movement, no attempt to play to the crowd. Every step he took was measured, deliberate, almost surgical, like a man who had already visualized the outcome and was now simply walking toward it. His expression barely shifted, locked in a cold, controlled focus that sent a clear message without a single word. He wasn't here for spectacle, he was here for execution. In an arena overflowing with noise and chaos, Wardley felt like the calm at the center of a storm. And that kind of composure isn't just impressive, it's unsettling. Because when a fighter shuts everything out like that, when the lights, the crowd, the pressure all fade into the background, it suggests something deeper than confidence. It suggests certainty. The kind of mental state where doubt has already been eliminated, where hesitation doesn't exist, and where every action inside the ring is driven by pure instinct sharpened through relentless preparation. For fans watching, it created a strange contrast. The arena was alive, electric, almost out of control, but Wardley looked untouched by it all, like he was operating on a completely different frequency. That's what makes this kind of mindset so powerful. It doesn't just prepare a fighter physically, it hardens them mentally, turning pressure into fuel instead of a weakness. And in fights at this level, that mental edge can be the difference between surviving the moment and completely dominating it. Because when someone walks to the ring like Fabio Wardley did, calm, focused, and almost eerily composed, it raises a chilling question. What does he know that everyone else doesn't? Daniel Dubois, by contrast, didn't just walk out, he arrived with a presence that felt impossible to ignore. Where Wardley was calm and contained, Dubois carried something heavier, something far more intense, like every step down that entrance path was loaded with intent. His movement wasn't rushed, but it wasn't relaxed either, it had a weight to it, a sense that he wasn't just heading toward a fight, but toward a moment he had to own. There was a quiet aggression in the way he held himself, a simmering energy just beneath the surface that made his walkout feel dangerous. His eyes told a story of pressure, expectation, and something deeper, a need to prove, to silence doubts, to leave no questions unanswered. And that kind of mindset doesn't just show up physically, it radiates. You could feel it in the arena, cutting through the noise, adding a sharp edge to an already electric atmosphere. What made it even more powerful was the contrast. On one side, Wardley's cold, almost surgical composure. On the other, Dubois' heavy, relentless intensity. Two completely different energies, moving toward the same destination, on a collision course that suddenly felt even more unpredictable. And that contrast didn't calm the tension, it amplified it. It made the moment feel bigger, more volatile, like something had to give. Because when two fighters carry such different mindsets into the same space, it doesn't just create anticipation. It creates the feeling that when they finally collide, it won't be technical, it'll be explosive, emotional, and impossible to control. The crowd didn't just react, they took over. What started as noise quickly turned into something far more powerful, a relentless wave of sound and movement that crashed over the entire arena and refused to let go. It wasn't just cheering or chanting anymore, it was raw, uncontrollable energy, thousands of voices merging into one deafening force that made the ground feel like it was vibrating beneath their feet. In that moment, the fighters weren't just walking into a ring. They were stepping into the center of something almost overwhelming. Every reaction from the audience amplified the tension. A slight movement from a fighter triggered a roar. A glance, a pause, even a change in posture, it all fed the frenzy. The crowd wasn't passive, it was alive, unpredictable, and fully invested, pushing the atmosphere to a level that felt almost too intense to contain. You could sense how it closed in around the fighters, how it added pressure with every step, turning a simple walkout into something that felt massive, almost suffocating. And that's what made it so unforgettable. For a brief moment, the walkout didn't feel like a build-up to the fight, it felt like the main event itself. The connection between the fighters and the fans created a feedback loop of adrenaline, where every second grew louder, heavier, more explosive than the last. It blurred the line between spectacle and sport, turning anticipation into something physical you could almost reach out and touch. Because this is what live boxing does at its absolute peak, it doesn't just entertain, it engulfs. It pulls everyone inside the moment, fighters and fans alike, and holds them there with an intensity that cameras can never fully capture. And when the crowd reaches that level, when the energy becomes that overwhelming, you know one thing for certain. Whatever happens next isn't just going to be watched, it's going to be felt. As both fighters moved closer to the ring, the atmosphere didn't just build, it tightened, like a coil being wound to its absolute limit. Every step felt louder than the last, heavier, more significant, as if the entire arena was counting them down in real time. This wasn't just a walk anymore, it was a slow, unavoidable march toward impact, toward that exact moment where everything they had prepared for would finally be tested under the harshest spotlight possible. You could feel the shift with every inch they gained. The noise from the crowd rose and fell like waves crashing against the tension in the air, and yet beneath it all was something deeper, an almost unbearable anticipation that refused to settle. This is the part people rarely talk about, the seconds that stretch longer than they should, where time feels distorted, where the future is hanging by a thread and no one knows which way it's about to snap. For the fighters, this is where reality starts to close in. The distance between them and the ring shrinks, and with it, so does the space for doubt, hesitation, or second thoughts. There's no more planning, no more imagining, just the cold understanding that in a matter of moments, everything becomes real. Every sacrifice, every brutal training session, every expectation, it all leads right here. And that's why this progression feels so powerful. It's not rushed. It's not chaotic. It's controlled, almost cinematic, dragging everyone along step by step, forcing them to sit in the tension, to feel every second of it. Because the closer they get, the clearer it becomes. There's no stopping what's coming. The walkout isn't just a formality, it's the opening move of the fight, and in many ways, it's psychological warfare at its purest. Long before gloves touch, before a single punch is thrown, both fighters are already sending messages, testing reactions, and trying to seize control in a way that most people don't even consciously notice. Every detail matters: the pace of the walk, the posture, the eye contact, even the way they respond to the noise around them. Nothing is accidental. This is where presence becomes a weapon. A fighter who projects calm confidence can quietly impose doubt, while one who radiates intensity can create a sense of looming danger. It's subtle, almost invisible to the casual eye, but for the opponent standing across the ring, it can feel overwhelming. Because in those moments, you're not just seeing your opponent, you're feeling them. Their energy, their belief, their readiness. And sometimes, that's enough to shift the mental balance before the fight has even officially begun. What makes it so powerful is how quickly it can take hold. A single look can linger. A certain kind of composure can plant a seed of hesitation. And in a sport where decisions are made in fractions of a second, even the smallest doubt can have massive consequences. Fighters know this, which is why the walkout becomes more than a routine. It becomes a performance with purpose, a calculated display designed to gain even the slightest edge. For the audience, it might seem like build-up. For the fighters, it's already happening. Because by the time the bell rings, the physical battle is just catching up to a mental one that's already been set in motion. The Cauldron isn't just a nickname, it feels like a warning. The moment you hear it, you already know this isn't a normal arena, and once the walkout begins, that idea becomes impossible to ignore. The space feels tighter, louder, more concentrated, like all the energy inside has been trapped and compressed, waiting for the exact moment to explode. It's not just intensity, it's pressure, building from every direction. As the fighters step into that environment, it no longer feels like they're simply entering a venue, it feels like they're crossing into something far more unforgiving. The lights seem harsher, the noise more aggressive, the atmosphere almost suffocating in the way it closes in around them. Every sound echoes louder, every movement feels magnified, and suddenly there's a sense that there's no escape from what's about to happen. That's what makes the Cauldron so powerful as a concept. It frames the entire moment differently. This isn't just an entrance anymore, it's a transition into a space where everything is heightened. Emotions run hotter, tension stretches further, and the margin for error feels razor-thin. It turns the walkout into a kind of passage, where fighters leave behind the controlled, predictable world of preparation and step into something raw, volatile, and completely unforgiving. And once they're inside it, once they've fully entered the Cauldron, there's no cooling it down. Because environments like this don't just host fights, they intensify them. By the time both fighters finally reached the ring, the atmosphere hadn't just built, it had peaked, surging to a level that felt almost overwhelming. The noise was deafening, the lights blinding, the tension so thick it felt like it could snap at any second. Every element, the music, the movement, the energy of the crowd, had come together perfectly, creating a moment so powerful it felt complete all on its own, as if the fight had already started without a single punch being thrown. For a few seconds, everything seemed suspended in time. The fighters stood there, just inches from the reality they'd been preparing for, while the arena buzzed with an intensity that was impossible to ignore. This wasn't just anticipation anymore, it was a full eruption of expectation, a collective sense that something massive was about to unfold. The kind of moment where even the smallest action, a glove adjustment, a stare across the ring, felt loaded with meaning. And that's what made it so unforgettable. Before the bell, before the chaos, before the violence, there was this. A perfect collision of energy, emotion, and spectacle that captured everything boxing is at its core. Raw. Unpredictable. Electric. Because in moments like this, the fight doesn't begin with the first punch. It begins with the feeling that anything could happen next, and nothing will ever be the same once it does. And in the end, What makes an entrance like this truly unforgettable isn't just the lights, the music, or the sheer spectacle, it's the transformation that happens right in front of you. This is the exact moment where preparation dies and performance takes over, where weeks, months, even years of sacrifice are suddenly compressed into a single walk toward the unknown. It's not just an entrance, it's a point of no return. Because once that transition happens, everything changes. The controlled environment, the game plan, the rehearsed scenarios, they all fade into the background. What's left is raw instinct, pressure, and the reality of what's about to unfold. And somehow, the walkout captures all of that in just a few minutes. It holds the tension, the fear, the confidence, the doubt, all of it before releasing it into the chaos of the fight. That's why moments like this stay with people. Long after the punches are thrown and the result is decided, fans still remember how it felt when the fighters made that walk. The energy, the atmosphere, the sense that something bigger than just a fight was about to happen. It leaves a mark, setting the emotional tone for everything that follows and shaping how the entire contest is remembered. Because in boxing, the story doesn't start with the first punch. It starts with the walk into something you can't come back from.